The reluctant CEO. This person never actually wanted the job. They wanted to build the product, solve the problem, run the team, and then one day the board decided they were the most logical person to put at the top and the company needed them to say yes. Reluctant CEOs are some of the most surprisingly effective leaders in corporate history because they're not managing for the title or the compensation or the status that comes with the position. They're managing because the mission still matters, and nobody else in the room understands it well enough to protect it. The catch is that reluctant CEOs frequently underestimate the political dimension of the role. The board management, the investor relations, the public-facing performance of confidence that the job requires, even on the days when nothing inside the building is going according to any plan. The parachute CEO. This one lands from outside the company, usually from a completely different industry, hired by a board that decided fresh eyes were more valuable than institutional knowledge. They arrive with a framework that worked somewhere else, a network of people they've already worked with before, and an agenda for the first 100 days that was largely written before they ever walked through the building. Parachute CEOs can be genuinely transformational. Sometimes the most valuable thing a struggling company can receive is someone who has never learned to accept the way things have always been done here. The risk is equally real. Someone who doesn't understand a specific culture, the specific customer, or the specific history of a company can optimize the wrong things with impressive efficiency and leave the organization worse than they found it, while the metrics briefly looked better. The founder who stayed too long. This CEO built the company from nothing, genuinely from nothing, back when the whole thing lived inside a laptop and a rented desk, and is still running it 20 years later in a market that has completely changed, with a company that has completely changed, using instincts that were perfectly calibrated for a version of the business that no longer exists. The founder who stayed too long isn't incompetent. They're operating on pattern recognition built in a different era, loyal to decisions that made sense in year 2 and stopped making sense somewhere around year 12. The board knows it, the senior leadership knows it. The founder is frequently the last person in the building to know it, because everyone who would tell them the truth directly has either already left or learned not to. The crisis CEO. Nobody calls this person when the company is growing and the stock is up and the press is favorable. They get called when the building is on fire. The previous CEO is gone under circumstances nobody is discussing publicly, and the board needs someone who doesn't panic when everything is simultaneously broken. Crisis CEOs have a specific skill set that looks like ordinary leadership from the outside and is actually something much rarer: the ability to make clear decisions with incomplete information under enormous pressure, while maintaining enough composure that the organization doesn't collapse from the uncertainty before the actual problem gets fixed. The best crisis CEOs know that about themselves. The ones who don't become the next crisis. The numbers CEO. This CEO sees the entire company as a financial model. Inputs, outputs, margins, efficiency ratios, and a set of levers that can be adjusted to move the numbers in the right direction. Every decision passes through a financial filter before it passes through anything else. Every initiative is evaluated on ROI before it's evaluated on anything more qualitative. Number CEOs can take a financially chaotic organization and turn it into a machine that produces predictable, consistent results, and in doing so can accidentally optimize out every single thing that made the people inside the organization want to work there in the first place. A company run entirely by a number CEO eventually becomes very efficient at producing something nobody is particularly excited to build anymore. The culture CEO. The complete opposite. This CEO believes genuinely and deeply that if the culture is right, everything else, the product, the revenue, the retention, the innovation, follows naturally from it. They invest in the people, the environment, the values, the rituals that make a company feel like something more than a transaction between an employer and a collection of employees who showed up for the compensation. Culture CEOs build organizations that attract talent the market can't explain, and retain people through downturns that would empty any normal building. The risk lives on the other side of that strength. A company with extraordinary culture and insufficient financial discipline is a wonderful place to work right up until the moment it runs out of money, which a culture CEO occasionally sees coming later than they should. The media CEO. This CEO understood something specific and valuable, that in the modern economy, a CEO's personal brand is a company asset that can be built, managed, and deployed strategically to generate attention, credibility, and capital that the product alone couldn't produce. Every public appearance is intentional. Every interview is managed. Every social media post is part of a larger positioning strategy even when it looks spontaneous. Media CEOs can raise funding, attract talent, and drive consumer interest at a scale that purely product-focused leaders can't match. The trap is what happens when the personal brand becomes more valuable than the underlying business, because at that point, the CEO is no longer running a company. They're maintaining a performance, and the performance has to continue regardless of what's actually happening inside the building. The consensus builder. This CEO never makes a unilateral decision if there is any available path to making it collaboratively. Every major call involves a process, gathering input, aligning stakeholders, building the kind of organizational buy-in that makes execution smoother because everyone feels ownership over the direction. Consensus builders run organizations where people feel genuinely heard, and where major decisions tend to stick because they were built with the team instead of handed down to them. The cost of that approach is speed. Markets don't wait for alignment processes to complete. Competitors don't pause while the consensus is being built. And in an industry moving fast enough, the most thoughtful, most inclusive decision-making process in the room can still produce the right answer 3 months after the window for it closed. The empire builder. This CEO is never satisfied with the size of the company they currently have. Acquisition after acquisition. Expansion into adjacent markets before the core market is fully captured. A strategic vision that is always 3 moves ahead of the current reality and requires the organization to stretch further and faster than it is sometimes ready to go. Empire builders create some of the largest, most complex, most influential companies in any given industry, and also some of the most spectacular collapses, because building an empire requires taking on risk at a scale that occasionally outpaces the organization's actual ability to manage what it's accumulating. The empire builder's greatest strength and greatest vulnerability are always the same thing: the absolute refusal to be satisfied with what already exists. The exit strategist. This CEO took the job with a specific timeline in mind and a specific outcome at the end of it. Their entire tenure is organized around positioning the company for acquisition, for an IPO, or for some other liquidity event that converts the equity into something real. Every decision made along the way is filtered through one question: does this make the company more valuable to the person who buys it next? Exit strategists can be genuinely excellent operators. The discipline of building toward a specific outcome often produces a cleaner, more focused organization than open-ended leadership does. The employees who figure out what's actually happening occasionally feel like passengers on a flight that was never going where the boarding pass said it was headed. 10 types, 1 boardroom. Which CEO do you think is actually running your favorite company right now? Drop it below.